Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a rapidly unfolding situation right in the heart of India's capital. We're going to look at an intense sequence of events that took a controversial remark from a judge and spun it into a massive, nationwide youth movement. It's a story that genuinely blends profound tragedy, some really sharp political satire, and a tense, ongoing standoff. So let's get right into it.
We actually have to begin with the inciting incident. On May 15, 2026, during a Supreme Court hearing about lawyers using fake degrees, Chief Justice Surya Kant expressed some pretty heavy frustration. He made a remark comparing unemployed youth who take to social media to attack government institutions to, quote, cockroaches and parasites of society. Now, the Chief Justice did later clarify that he was specifically talking about people entering noble professions with bogus degrees, and he said he actually has high regard for the youth, but the damage was kind of already done. That controversial label, it stuck.
And this perceived insult spread like wildfire. Young people across the country were already feeling the crushing weight of systemic unemployment and educational instability. So they didn't just take this as a misquote, they took it as a direct reflection of how the establishment truly views them. It literally set the perfect stage for an organized digital resistance.
Which brings us to Section 1, NEET leaks and student deaths. To really understand the fuel behind this fire, we need to look at the devastating reality facing students on the ground. Because, the anger wasn't just about a single word.
The human cost here is absolutely staggering. Between the sudden cancellation of the NEET-UG exam on May 12th and the scheduled retest on June 21st, at least 12 students across India took their own lives. Think about that for a second. These were young aspirants caught in a brutal 37-day window of just crushing uncertainty. The scale of this crisis is devastating. The cancellation was initially triggered by a 150-page guest paper leak that started circulating in Sikar, Rajasthan, and investigators actually traced links all the way to a network in Maharashtra. Practically overnight, millions of students had their futures completely put on hold. And what's really heartbreaking is that in at least 5 of these 12 suicide cases, there wasn't even a note left behind. Police reports continually point to the unbearable pressure of exam performance and the sheer despair of facing the prospect of having to do it all over again.
To put a face to this tragedy, consider a specific case in Rajasthan. After taking the initial exam, a 22-year-old Dalit youth told his father it went so well that, quote, God can't stop me from qualifying. But when the retest was announced, he was completely distraught and tragically took his own life just 3 days later. His grieving family, who sacrificed everything for his education, is now refusing to immerse his ashes until their demands for compensation and a government job are met.
All right, let's move to Section 2, Cockroach Janta Party, the movement. Let's look at how all this immense grief and frustration crystallized into a highly organized and honestly unprecedented political movement. Completely reclaiming the Chief Justice's insult, digital communications strategist Abhijeet Dipke launched the Cockroach Janta Party, or the CJP. It was set up as a direct satirical parody of the ruling establishment. Their slogan, voice of the lazy and unemployed. The entry requirements were pretty simple. You just had to be unemployed, chronically online, and able to rant professionally.
This digital movement immediately tapped into the Gen Z zeitgeist. Launched on May 16th, this mock political platform absolutely exploded online. They garnered over 350,000 signups and reportedly amassed tens of millions of followers on Instagram in a matter of days. What started out as satire quickly became a powerful vessel for real anger, uniting a whole generation demanding genuine educational reform and systemic accountability.
The events tracked with lightning speed, moving from a viral online moment in mid-May to real-world, boots-on-the-ground action. By late June, the CJP had organized protests across multiple states, and then officially laid siege to Jantar Mantar in New Delhi on June 20th, starting an indefinite sit-in.
That brings us to Section 3, Jantar Mantar protests, taking to the streets. This is right where that digital frustration met the pavement.
Protesters flooded Jantar Mantar, holding these really sharp, unyielding slogans. Posters reading things like, "We asked for Make in India, you gave us Leak in India." They weren't just pointing at the NEET paper leaks either. They were also calling out alleged irregularities in the CBSC's on-screen marking system, demanding answers for what they see as a completely broken evaluation process.
The core objectives at the protest were uncompromising. Led by CJP founder Abhijeet Dipke, the crowd demanded the immediate resignation of Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, as well as PM Modi. They even released an education manifesto, pushing for massive reforms to crush what they called the paper mafia. But, well, as the sit-in stretched way beyond the permitted 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. window, friction with the Delhi police began to escalate really rapidly.
Next is Section 4, Wangchuk's strike. A leader joins. The stakes were raised dramatically when a prominent national figure stepped into the mix. Environmentalist and acclaimed education reformer Sonam Wangchuk arrived at Jantar Mantar, proudly declaring himself an honorary cockroach. He urged the government to actually listen to the youth rather than silence them. And then, on June 28th, he anchored the protest by initiating an indefinite hunger strike right alongside several student activists. This brought immense credibility and gravity to the situation on the ground.
But the medical reality of what followed was incredibly grave. Fast forward to today, which is day 21 of the strike. Wangchuk's health has deteriorated severely. He's reported losing 9.5 kilograms. That is roughly 20% of his total body weight. Medical reports showed his potassium levels plummeted from a normal 4.3 down to a life-threatening 2.9. Doctors have been issuing urgent, dire warnings about severe dehydration and the formation of ketone bodies that are threatening his organs.
This takes us to Section 5, Eviction and Detentions, July 18 crackdown. Let's get into the breaking events of today, July 18, 2026, because this simmering standoff just hit its boiling point. In a meticulously planned dawn operation, Delhi police moved in and cleared the Jantar Mantar protest site. Reports say the police waited for a short window when Dipke stepped away, activated phone jammers, and swept right in. By 7:40 a.m., they had moved Sonam Wangchuk into an ambulance and transported him to Safdarjung Hospital. The police stated they did this strictly on expert medical advice and in compliance with the Delhi High Court order due to his failing health.
However, the CJP vehemently disputes that medical pretext. Spokesperson Saurav Das claimed Wangchuk's vitals were completely normal just a day prior. He even stated that no doctor checked on Wangchuk that morning before the police used force. The CJP is arguing this wasn't a rescue at all, but rather an illegal detention by a government that's rattled by the movement's growing momentum.
And amidst the total chaos of the eviction, CJP founder Abhijeet Dipke took to social media claiming he was physically assaulted and temporarily detained by authorities. He actively accused the police of allowing goons to disrupt their peaceful assembly before stepping in to forcibly dismantle the protest site themselves.
Now, if you think this crackdown ended the defiance, think again. It has literally multiplied it. At Safdarjung Hospital, which is currently surrounded by riot control vans, Wangchuk is actively refusing IV fluids and life-saving treatments until he can be examined independently. Meanwhile, Abhijeet Dipke, who has since been released, doubled down by announcing the beginning of his own indefinite hunger strike. The stakes are just getting higher.
As we wrap up this explainer, we are left looking at a deeply fractured landscape. A crisis that began with a single judicial insult and was fueled by the devastating loss of at least 12 young lives has now locked the government in a severe standoff with a starving reformer and a completely enraged generation. With the massive Chal Sansad March still scheduled for July 20th, we have to ask, what happens next? How can trust possibly be restored at this point? Keep these events in mind as this story continues to unfold.